In part 1 of my Magic Kingdom series, I talked about a typical day in the Magic Kingdom and tried to give tips to make your day as smooth as possible with kids. And in part 2, today I'm going to go through land by land and talk about all the different rides, experiences, characters, attractions, and talk about everything you might want to consider if you're bringing kids. So we are taking a deep dive into the Magic Kingdom today. So I am Jessica, and this is my channel where I share everything about Disney World, trip planning, vlogs, and with a highlight on all of that with kids. So if that's something that's interesting for you, or if you think it will be helpful while you're planning a trip, don't forget to subscribe because I'm going to be making a lot more videos like this. And in a couple months, we are going to be going on a trip and I'm going to be vlogging the whole thing. So don't forget to subscribe. So let's jump right into it because I have a feeling this video is going to get long. So upon entering the Magic Kingdom, you are first going to come into Main Street, which is kind of modeled after Walt's hometown in Marceline, Missouri. It's so quaint and cute. There's not a lot of rides and attractions here. It's a lot of shopping, but there are a few things that you might want to know about. So the first thing is there are a lot of shops. You have the Emporium there, and there's a lot of different shops. All of the shops on Main Street are actually connected. You can kind of walk from one end to the other. So it's kind of nice to know that. You can get a nice break from the heat in there, or if you're trying to get out at fireworks time, sometimes it's a little faster to go through there, and then you can look at all the fun merchandise on your way. But one thing to consider with kids is it might be fun for them to have a little allowance, something they can work for, throughout the year while you're waiting for your trip. That's what we're doing with our oldest daughter. She has a chore chart and she's saving up all that money for the Magic Kingdom. Well, for Disney, but Main Street is a great place to spend that money. And if you have young kids, it's kind of fun for them to have their own money and make decisions about what they want to spend it on. So just something to think about. Another thing to note is that there is a barbershop on Main Street. It's called Harmony Barbershop, and you can get haircuts there. They do, I don't know, I remember when I was younger, I got like my hair braided and they put like Mickey confetti in it so you can get it styled, all kinds of fun ththings. But one of the major things that you should know about is that if your child gets their first haircut there, which we are hoping, our son will be 8 or 9 months at that time, we're hoping he can get his first haircut there and that it won't be too long before then. But it's kind of a special thing. You get a certificate, and I'm pretty sure you get like the classic Mickey ears hat, and it's really cute if you can time it right. Our 2-year-old daughter also has not had a haircut before, so I'm thinking we might try to do both of their first haircuts on Main Street, because how special would that be? But that's another fun thing you might want to consider if you have kids, just something a little extra. Also, there are so many snacks and treats on Main Street. There's the confectionery with all the candy and like the Rice Krispie treats and just all kinds of stuff in there. And there's an ice cream parlor. Casey's Corner is also there. It's a little restaurant I've talked about before. You can just get like good snacky type food there, like fries. Our favorite are the corn dog nuggets. You can get hot dogs, just things like that most kids are gonna like. So that's there too. Obviously you get the great views of the castle on Main Street. You can get your picture taken there, don't forget to do that. And even though there are no real attractions on Main Street, there are a couple of characters that you can meet. Apparently, I was looking on the app, and apparently you can meet Snow White sometimes in Town Square, like outside, I think on the porch. I think that's what it said on the app. I've never seen her there, so maybe that's a new thing, but it did say that on the app. And then you're also gonna have your Mickey meet and greet inside Town Square. That line can get pretty long, so you might want to try to get a lightning lane for that if you have Genie Plus. Or just try to time it during a downtime. But it is inside, the line is inside, and it's air conditioning, so sometimes that's a nice break in the middle of the day. And then the only other main thing there that is important if you have kids is, and it's not necessarily on Main Street, it's in the castle. So I don't know, is that still considered Main Street? I'm not sure. But my son is playing in the background, my 4-month-old. So if you hear little baby noises, I apologize. par for the course with this channel. But anyway, the Bippity Boppity Boutique is in the castle. If you have a child that's really into princesses, you can get a whole makeover. They do their hair, their nails, their makeup. I think you can even buy a dress. And we did it once with our oldest daughter when she was 4, I believe. And it was just this magical experience. And we went through the rest of the day and met a bunch of princesses, and they just oohed and awed over her. And we also scheduled a dinner that day at Cinderella's royal table, which is kind of fun. You can make a whole princess day out of it. I think they can also do like prince makeovers too. So that can be super fun. It books up fast and it is expensive. So you'll want to look into prices and trying to book that as soon as you can, but it is a very magical experience. Okay, so I think that's most of the things I wanted to talk about on Main Street. So now we're going to head to the left and head into Adventureland. We're gonna talk about that next. So first of all, I want to talk about the rides in Adventureland. So obviously Adventureland is pretty self-explanatory. I don't think I need to explain the vibes. I'm sure you can kind of picture it in your head. So the rides that are there, first of all, you have Jungle Cruise. That is a good one. It has no height requirements. Everybody in your party can ride. It's not scary unless your child is like really scared of animals or something like that. But for most kids, it's not scary at all. It's just a bunch of like animatronic animals, and you've got this skipper that steers your boat through and tells a lot of corny dad jokes the whole time. It's a classic. You have to do it at least once, I think. I will say that line is one of my least favorites because it's outside, and it's one of those ones where you think you're almost there and you go around the corner and you see that there's like this whole other section of the line that you couldn't see before. For some reason, it always gets me, but I think it is worth it. It's fun and it's a classic, and you know, it's just classic Magic Kingdom, and most kids think it's funny and they love to see the little animatronic animals, and so that's a good one with kids for sure. Another ride in Adventureland is Pirates of the Caribbean, another classic. It actually was not an opening day attraction. It was in Disneyland, and they didn't put one in Disney World, and people complained because they had heard how great it was in Disneyland, so then they built one in Disney World. So anyway, I've heard the Disneyland one is better. Hopefully someday I'll get to experience that one. But it is basically just a boat ride. It's very dark, so it's not too scary, but if your child is very scared of the dark, they might not like that. There's pirates. There is one part where you have like cannons shooting at your boat. I don't think, my kids have never, it's not overly scary, but the water will kind of explode up and sometimes you'll get wet. So if that's gonna scare your kids, you might wanna think about riding it, see if they can handle it. There's also a small hill towards the beginning of the ride, and it's in the dark. You can't see it coming, but it's very mild. I took my 5-month on it and everything was fine last time we went, my 5-month-old, I mean. So that one, I would say, slightly scarier than Jungle Cruise. Some kids might be scared of it, but I would say most kids probably would not find it scary. Just that little drop, the dark, and if they're scared of pirates, you might not want to ride it. But that one does not have a height restriction. Anybody can ride that one too, and it is a lot of fun. It's one of my favorites. Okay, the next one is basically just a dupe of the Dumbo ride that we'll talk about later. It's Magic Carpets of Aladdin. We have actually never done this ride because why wait in line for that when there are so many better rides? But basically, it's just a ride that spins around. Your car can lift up and go down, and you're basically riding on a magic carpet, obviously. So if your kid really likes Aladdin, or if you need something to kill time while you're waiting for other things, you might want to ride it. Otherwise, it's probably a skip. There is a camel outside of the ride that sometimes will spit at you, which is probably the most exciting part of the ride. So that's another one there. I would probably skip it. Okay, so those are all of the rides that are in Adventureland, but there's a couple of other attractions that aren't necessarily classified as rides. First of all, there's the Enchanted Tiki Room. This was an opening day attraction. Basically, you just go into this building and it's a bunch of birds that sing to you. It's a classic. If you're like a really big Disney lover, you'll probably want to do that. If not, you might want to skip it. I haven't done it in years. It's charming and cute, but it's not like one of the e-ticket attractions, one of the most popular ones. So depends on what kind of trip you want to have. Your kids would probably like it. They might get a little bored though. So, oh, the Swiss Family Treehouse. This is one that doesn't have a line or anything. It's just literally like a treehouse, like from Swiss Family Robinson. There's a lot of steps you have to climb up. So if anybody in your party can't climb steps or, you know, thinks that would be uncomfortable, you won't want to do it. But it's cute that you can look at all the different rooms, and we've done it once or twice. It's a good filler attraction if you need to kill some time too. And then there are a couple of character meet and greets in Adventureland 2. You can meet Aladdin and Jasmine, and that's close to that Magic Carpets of Aladdin ride. And you can also meet Captain Jack Sparrow, which is close to Pirates of the Caribbean. So depending on your party and if your kids like those characters or not, you might want to check into that. Always look on the app and see the times that they meet, because you want to get there. I mean, you don't want to miss it. Some of the characters are there all day. Some of the characters just come out at certain times, but the times are usually listed on that Disney World app. So if a character is really important to you, make sure you're looking on the app and looking at those times and trying to get there early. Moving right along to Frontierland. So I feel like Adventureland and Frontierland are kind of similar. Obviously, it's kind of like an old Wild West. I don't want to say, well, some of it's like a town, I guess. A lot of the attractions currently in April of 2024, when I'm recording this video, there's not a lot going on there right now because there's a lot of construction happening, but that will change in the near future. So let's talk about the rides first. So first of all, you have Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, and this is probably my favorite ride besides Haunted Mansion. It's my favorite thrill ride, if you can even call it that, in the Magic Kingdom. So this is a good starter coaster, I would say. It's just, you're on this like runaway train. There aren't really any big hills, but it's just really twisty and turny. If you can get a seat in the back, that's always really fun. It really throws you around, but it's not too intense. I would say it's probably more intense than Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, which we'll talk about later. But it's not too intense. It's comparable to like Space Mountain. Maybe a little more intense than Slinky Dog in Hollywood Studios, but it's not bad. So that one is fun. It does have a height requirement. I will put on the screen what the height requirement is. So only certain kids are gonna be able to ride that one. But it's fun if if your kid's just starting to ride roller coasters, they probably would enjoy this one. Or, adults too. I love riding it. It's especially in the back row. It's a lot of fun. Okay, so the next one is very exciting. It used to be Splash Mountain. Oh, baby sneeze. It used to be Splash Mountain, but it is going to be changed, or is currently changing into Tiana's Bayou Adventure. And it is supposed to open in early summer 2024. So depending on when you watch this video, it might or might not be open. Supposedly it is going to keep the same basic like track as Splash Mountain, but all of the scenery will be different. It'll obviously be themed to Tiana, which is one of my favorite Disney movies. I think it has one of the best messages. I love it so much. So I'm very excited. We're going this summer and I cannot wait to ride. There is a height requirement. I'm not even sure if I'm sure it's probably the same as what Splash Mountain was. So I'll put it up on the screen if we know what it is. But it's not even really a coaster. It's more like a log ride. There's one big hill, and that's the only scary thing that we know of that's in the ride. So if your child does not like big hills, they may not like the ride. Also, since it hasn't opened yet, I don't know if there is anything scary in the ride. But in Splash Mountain, there was a whole like 15-minute dark ride basically while you were going through on your little raft. So I'm sure it's going to be like a dark ride situation and then the big hill at the end. I know my 2-year-old, we tried to watch Princess and the Frog and Dr. Facilier, when he sings that whole song, it came on and she said, "Mommy, I don't like this movie." I don't know what it was about him, but he really scared her. So she's too little to ride it anyway. But depending on if your kids think that villain is scary, there could be something in the ride about it. We don't know yet. So I guess we'll have more information in a few months on that one, but it should be pretty fun. I cannot wait to ride it. Those are the only rides, so not a whole lot of rides in Frontierland. There are a couple of attractions though. First of all, something that I have never done is the Frontierland Shootin' Arcade. I think it used to be free, but I think you do have to pay a little bit now to do it. I will look into that and I'll put it on the screen, whatever information I find about the price. But it always looks really fun. It's probably just one of those like little filler experiences that might be fun while you're waiting for like a lightning lane time or something like that. So it's just like a little arcade. So depending on your kid, they might think that's fun. The next one is also closed right now. So like I said, lots of things are closed in Frontierland, or two big things. But it is the Country Bear Jamboree. So it is currently closed for refurbishment. They're completely redoing all of the songs. So it's supposed to open in summer of 2024. So again, depending on when you are watching this video, it may or may not be open. This is a good place to sit if you need to rest your feet. It's nice and cool. It's not gonna be like an e-ticket attraction, but if you just need a break, you can sit down and watch these huge animatronic bears singing country songs. So it's another one that's really old. It's really like classic Disney World. So depending on what is a priority for you on your trip, you and your kids might enjoy it. I wouldn't expect it to be scary or anything like that. I think anybody can enjoy this, but it is not like an e-ticket attraction that you're gonna want to see unless you love the Country Bears and want to see their new show. So that's another thing there. That can be a good time filler too. Good time filler nap attraction, or some people might be offended by me saying that if you love the Country Bears, but you can also meet the bears sometimes outside of the Country Bear Jamboree, and I believe you can still do that now even though it's closed. So if you want to meet the Country Bears, a lot of times they'll just be out like dancing and playing around in Frontierland, so check on those times if you want to meet them. And something else that I haven't done since I was 8 years old, but it's an attraction in Frontierland, is Tom Sawyer Island. And it's basically like a glorified playground. I would not suggest it unless you want to get like away from the crowds for a little while, or if you just want to like, it's basically a playground. So if you want to go play on the playground a little bit, or if your kid really wants to ride on one of the rafts that take you over there. So basically you ride on this raft. It looks like a wooden raft made out of like logs. And it'll take you over to this separate island. I often forget that it's even there. Like I said, I went there when I was 8, and it's just basically like a playground. You can run around and explore and play. So if you're going to be there for a long time, spending a lot of time in Magic Kingdom, you might want to do that. Or like I said, if you need like a little time out. Another one that's definitely not one of those e-ticket attractions though. So I would not prioritize it over other bigger things. But if you need to kill some time, it might be fun to check it out. I kind of want to go there sometime because like I said, I haven't been there since I was 8, so it's been a long time. Okay, so moving along to one of my favorite lands, and that is Liberty Square. I will say this is not a huge land. I don't think of like, oh, this is the favorite land of a lot of kids, except for one attraction, but as an adult I really like it. But this video is about kids, so let's talk about the rides and attractions there that your kids might enjoy or might be a little scared of, and that is the case with this next one. There's really only 2 rides there. The first one is the Haunted Mansion. That is my very favorite attraction at Magic Kingdom. I rode it for the first time when I was in 3rd grade. Again, that trip when I was 8 years old. I remember being terrified to go on it. And we went on it, and I remember thinking like, this is funny. This isn't, oh, we got a fussy baby. I remember thinking like, this is not scary. This is funny. And I felt so like tough after I had ridden it and conquered it. And I don't know if that's part of the reason why I love it so much. I think it might be, but I love the backstory of it. There's a million YouTube videos. I think there are even books about like the backstory of the Haunted Mansion. The technology that they made this ride in the 70s and it still holds up today. Like, my favorite scene in the ride is the ballroom where they're all dancing and there's a lady blowing out candles on a birthday cake, and they just, like, when you picture a ghost, like, they look exactly like what you would picture. And the fact that it was made like back when the park opened always blows my mind. Anyway, this is a video about kids and I'm getting carried away with my love for the Haunted Mansion. But anyway, everybody will probably, okay, come here. TJ's making another appearance because he needs me to hold him. But he was supposed to be napping. He never naps when I try to take a video. But yeah, you're gonna like the Haunted Mansion. But this is definitely one. It does not have a height requirement. Anybody can ride it, but I would be careful about this one. The beginning of the ride is pretty spooky. They had two main Imagineers working on the ride. One of them wanted the ride to be very spooky. The other one wanted the ride to be silly. So you can see a little bit of both, but most of the beginning of the ride is spooky. So if you have anyone in your group that's not gonna like the spooky stuff and the ghosts and different things like that, the stretching room, which is the room you go in before you even get on the ride, can be the scariest part. You may even be able to ask to skip the stretching room. I've heard of that happening before. So if you think your child can't handle the stretching room, basically, real quick, I'll just do a quick synopsis. Basically, the room, it looks like it's stretching, and then all of a sudden the lights turn off and you hear a scream and there's this creepy voice. That can be the scariest part of the whole experience, I think. So you might want to ask to skip that. I think that is an option. Not 100% sure, but I've heard of people whose kids have sensory needs and things like that asking to skip the stretching room, and I think you can. So maybe you can skip that and just do the ride. But if your kids are scared of spooky things, I might skip this one or wait till they're older. Or I always tell my daughters, he's too little to really understand yet, but with my older two, I always say, if anything scares you, just close your eyes and put your head on my shoulder and it will be gone. You won't be able to see it anymore. Nothing's gonna touch you. It's okay. Just close your eyes and pretend like it's not there. So that's one of the best attractions in the park, but also can be one that really freaks out kids. If anything, don't ride it first. If you think your kids are gonna be scared, you wanna ride something first that they have a really positive experience with, or else they might not wanna ride anything else the rest of the day. So just Haunted Mansion, ride it with caution, but it is excellent. The other ride in Liberty Square is what is it called? The Liberty Bell Riverboat. This is basically just a boat ride. I've never done this. I think you can see different little like scenes that you can't see from anywhere else in the park, but it's very slow. Unless your child really loves boats and wants to try it, I would say this is a skip. It's not super exciting, especially if you have limited time. I would say skip this one, especially with kids. Okay, and then for attractions, let me see. The only other attraction here is the Hall of Presidents. I have only done the Hall of Presidents once. And I mean, a lot of kids are probably gonna find it kind of boring. It's a little bit long. The animatronics are really cool. And of course, it's cool that it's educational. So, you know, if you want your kids if that's important for you on your trip, you want them to get some educational experiences, then I would do this one. But overall, you could probably skip it. Or if you have a kid that's like a big history buff or something, you might want to do it. Otherwise, it's not the most exciting. It's kind of a nap ride. I hope nobody comes at me for saying that either. But not a huge e-ticket attraction, and kids are probably gonna think it's boring. So you can probably skip that one too. One more thing in Liberty Square that's kind of fun is they have this little Christmas shop. We like to get a Christmas ornament every year. You can get personalized Christmas ornaments too. So that's another thing in Liberty Square that you or your kids might think is fun. You might not want to skip that. Okay, so I've kind of saved the best two lands for last, at least the best two for kids in my opinion. They are the two lands that I think our family tends to spend the most time. And the first one is Fantasyland. So if you have a child that's really into the princesses, or any of the movies that or any of those classic Disney movies, you're going to want to spend a lot of time in Fantasyland. That I feel like when I think of Magic Kingdom, those Fantasyland vibes are like what I think of. We have spent so many hours in Fantasyland with my little, well, not little anymore, she's 10 now, but with my oldest daughter when she was little. She was such a princess lover, and we just spent almost all of our time in Fantasyland. It's almost making me teary-eyed thinking of those memories. But anyway, the rides in Fantasyland. So first of all, you have Dumbo. So not that exciting of a ride. You just, get in your car that's shaped like Dumbo, and it spins around in circles, and you can make it go up and down. Any kid can ride it, no height restrictions or anything like that. But it's classic. Like if you have a kid, you have to ride on Dumbo, and they're gonna love it. And something cool about Dumbo is the queue for that. You go in and there's like this huge play area indoors. So even if the line is long, sometimes that's great for your kids to run around in air conditioning, instead of waiting in a line. If they've been waiting in lines all day, it can be good for them to run around, climb, slide, get some of that energy out while they're waiting for the ride. So that is a must do, I feel like, if it's your first trip anyway, and if you have kids. Okay, the next one is another one that I have never done, and I'm hoping my 2-year-old is tall enough to ride it, and maybe it can be her first roller coaster this summer, but that is the Barnstormer. And this, I said earlier that Big Thunder Mountain Railroad is a good starter coaster, but this is really going to be your good, like, very first coaster for the really little kids, because it's super short, it's quick, it's very tame, but it is a roller coaster. So it's a good starter roller coaster, so they can ride it and you can kind of gauge their reaction and see if they're going to be able to handle anything a little bit more intense. Like I said, I've never ridden it, but I've seen like ride throughs and stuff. Hopefully, I feel like I need to ride everything at least once, so maybe I'll try to ride it this summer with one or both of my daughters. We'll see. Oh my goodness. This is probably the attraction that we have ridden more than any other ride, because it's my oldest daughter's favorite and it's always been her favorite. And that is, hold on, it has a very long name and I always just call it the Ariel ride, but technically it is called The Little Mermaid Ariel's Undersea Adventure. That doesn't even sound right. I took it right off of the Disney website when I made my notes, but I thought it was Journey of the Little Mermaid. You'll know it when you see it. It's the Little Mermaid ride. It's not intense, it's not scary, there's no height requirement, it's just a dark ride. You ride in this little clamshell and it brings you through all the different scenes of the ride. The only thing that might be scary to some kids is that there is a giant Ursula animatronic. So most kids won't be scared, but if you think your child might be scared of that, you might want to steer clear of this ride. But it is just, my daughter just loved it. We rode it over and over and over. Back when we had original Fast Pass and you could just book them one after the other. With Genie Plus, you can only ride everything once per day, but we would ride it over and over and over and over. I mean, it's not like the most exciting ride in the world, but for kids, sometimes it is, and it was for our daughter. So definitely, I wouldn't skip that one, especially if you have like a Little Mermaid lover in your family. And it's really cool, that whole area, it looks like themed like the Little Mermaid, and right next to it is Ariel's Grotto. Let me just check my notes. Is that opened right now? Yeah, Ariel's Grotto. So you go into this like little cave and you can meet Ariel, and usually I have not seen too long of a line for that meet and greet, and it's covered, it's kind of indoors, so that's always a plus for those of us that go in the summer. All right, the next one is another coaster. This one's slightly more intense than the Barnstormer, but still pretty low on the intensity scale, and that is Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. This is one of your most popular rides in Magic Kingdom. You do have to pay extra if you want to get a Fast Pass for this ride. It's not even covered in like the normal Genie Plus. This might change when Tiana's Bayou Adventure opens in a few months, but currently that's how it is. We usually don't ride it unless we have a lightning lane, because it's a cute ride, but I don't think it's worth like a 2 or 3 hour wait like it sometimes gets. But basically you just go in these mine cars on this little kiddie roller coaster. It's not very intense. And part of it is more like a dark ride where you're in the cave with the dwarfs too, and it's really cute. The cars they kind of swing back and forth too as you're going through the ride. My daughter does not like it, and she'll ride Slinky Dog, but she doesn't like this one. So I think it just depends on the kid. Your mileage may vary, but another good starter coaster, a little more intense than some of the other ones. And it's cute. It's really cute. It's newer, so that's why it's so popular, but I don't know. I don't know if it's worth some of those really, really long waits that it sometimes gets. This is a good one to rope drop or to do at the end of the evening when it's going to have a shorter wait if you don't have Genie, or if you don't have the individual lightning lane for it. Okay, then you have the Mad Tea Party. This is just the spinning teacups. I don't believe there's a height requirement. It's pretty self-explanatory. If your kid hates spinning, they're not going to like this ride. Our daughter just loves to make it spin as fast as it can, to the point where I almost get nauseous. But another like classic, it's a good filler ride. I would say it's, you know, you can probably skip it, but it's a good filler ride if you're waiting for or waiting for like lightning lanes, times to open up, or things like that. And it's cute. We like to ride it at night. It's really cute at night. And then another really cute one is the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. I would compare this kind of to the aerial ride, and that it's just a dark ride that kind of takes you through the story of the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. You kind of like go through the book pages and then see different scenes. It's not scary. The only thing that might be a little bit scary is if your kid is scared of like the heffalumps and woozles scene in the movie, or there is like a little bit of a rainstorm, but it's not overly loud. It's pretty cute. Everyone's pretty much going to enjoy this for the most part. And this is another one that has a lot of fun interactive things in the queue. So if it has a longer line, it might be one that's not so bad to wait through, because you can play and do different things and run around. And sometimes I think my oldest daughter enjoys the queue more than the ride for that one. And then you've got your classic, It's a Small World. My husband hates this ride. It is his least favorite ride because it's so long and it's so repetitive, and the song can just get into your brain and make you go crazy. I like it because our babies and our really little kids tend to really like it. Like, I bet it will be one of TJ's favorite rides because it's so colorful, and all the dolls and the animals and just a lot of things to look at. And it's a classic. I feel like you have to do it once. It usually doesn't have too long of a line either. But if you had to pick some of the other bigger attractions over it, I probably would. So if you don't have a ton of time, skipping it, you're not gonna miss a ton. But if you like to see all those classic Disney rides, you're probably gonna wanna do this one. The next ride in Fantasyland is another dark ride, and it is one of the most popular rides in the park, and that is Peter Pan's Flight. It is a very charming attraction. It was another one of those classic opening day attractions. I remember when I was in 3rd grade, again, that trip, that's like my first Disney trip. I will never forget it. But I think that was my favorite ride on that trip, other than the Haunted Mansion. And I remember just getting into your boat. You basically ride on is it like a pirate ship? Or you basically are riding in a ship, and it starts going, and spoiler alert, my mind was blown because all of a sudden it goes up in the air and you start flying. And my little 8-year-old brain, I was kind of on that cusp of like still believing in magic and still not, but I was just like, I remember like not really wanting to try to figure it out because I was just like, oh, we're flying. And that was probably like one of my last like childhood like memories where I really, you know, I believed in the magic. I'm getting why do I always get teary-eyed in like every video that I make? But I think that might be why this ride is so charming and so popular. It's just a little bit of magic, and kids love it. There's nothing really scary unless your kids don't like crocodiles or Captain Hook. They might be a little bit scared, but for the most part, this one's gonna be fine for everybody. It's just a slow moving dark ride, and it's quick. It's not like a super long ride. I still sometimes scratch my head like, why does this one have such a long wait? I don't know. Why is it so popular? I don't know. But it is just another one of those ones that's just really charming and magical, especially for kids. I remember just being like, oh my gosh, like it really is magic here. We're flying. So, and that was in 1993. Kids of today's world might not be as impressed as I was back in the day. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. That one's cute. I would probably try to either get a lightning lane for that, do it first thing in the morning, or again late at night when those lines are not going to be so long. Going through the standby line though, rather than virtual queue, there are a lot of fun things to look at and like interactive things. I have never gone through the standby line since it has had that fun stuff, because we only do it with a lightning lane usually. But yeah, it's cute, it's fun. I would try to avoid waiting in a super long line if you can. The only other ride in Fantasyland is Prince Charming's Royal Carousel. It's just, you know, basically your run-of-the-mill carousel, although it's extra magical just because you're in the Magic Kingdom. But yeah, definitely probably either a filler attraction, or if you're, you know, if you just want to ride it just because of the, you know, the vibes there with the castle and Fantasyland, and it's you know, it's obviously a little more magical than like a normal carousel, but it's really just like your run-of-the-mill carousel. So unless you really want to have that experience of riding it in Fantasyland, it's probably going to be a skip or like a filler attraction if you're trying to kill time. We typically don't do it. My kids aren't. Well, I bet Emma loves carousels, our 2-year-old, so we'll probably do it this trip, but our oldest daughter never really wanted to do it. So remember, take your lead from your kids, and don't push them too hard, and everyone's gonna have a better time. Okay, so there's a lot of extra attractions too in Fantasyland, and one of my kids' favorite is the Casey Jr. Splash and Soak Station. I talked about this in my last video too. It's one of those things where you plan everything within an inch of your life. You have your whole day planned out. You know what rides are top of your list, and those are your priorities. And even with all that planning, something like Casey Jr. Splash and Soak Station is inevitably going to be your kid's favorite thing. So that's always what happens. It's basically just a splash pad. There's like a circus train and little animal. You can see like elephant trunks and things like that, and it just squirts out water. And our daughter just absolutely loved it when she was little. Still loves it now. I mean, it's fun for older kids too. Who doesn't love a splash pad? But in the middle of the summer, when it's 1 billion degrees, that can be like a lifesaver too, because it helps everybody cool down. So I always say, don't skip those little attractions like that. I mean, obviously that's something, it doesn't have a wait. You can just go through, run through, cool down, have a good time. It was a favorite for our oldest daughter when she was little. Also, near the Dumbo ride, there's like a whole like circus kind of themed area, and you can meet, what is it called? Pete's Silly Sideshow. And there are 2 different meet and greets. On one, looking at my notes, you can meet Goofy and Donald, and they're kind of in their like circus kind of costumes. And then the other one, you can meet Minnie and Daisy, and same thing, in circus themed costumes. Those can get long lines. Sometimes they can be short. It's another good one to use a lightning lane for. So I know a lot of people want to know, like, where can I meet Minnie and Mickey in Magic Kingdom? So Mickey, again, is in Town Square on Main Street, and Minnie you can meet in Pete's Silly Sideshow in the little tent meet and greet area close to the Dumbo ride. There's also a really fun gift shop there. We always find a lot of fun stuff in there too if you need some air conditioning for a few minutes. Another thing I already mentioned was Ariel's Grotto, so that's another meet and greet. You can meet Ariel right next to her ride. Oh, and this one, I always mention this, Mickey's PhilharMagic. It's a 3D show, and it sounds like a waste of time, but there's something about it. I don't know. I have always loved it. It's so charming. There's a couple little like cute surprises in it. If you need to get out of the heat and some air conditioning, it's a really good filler attraction that's a little bit more entertaining, I would say, than some of the other ones. There's usually not a long wait. You usually just kind of have to wait till the show before you is over. You can sit down, it's dark, it's cool. I love it. We do it almost every single time. And then, oh, Enchanted Tales with Belle. This is interesting. We've only done it once. It's a meet and greet kind of, but it's also like a show kind of. Basically, you go to Belle's house. And there's a couple really cool surprises there too, but it's like an interactive show. So you kind of act out Beauty and the Beast. They tell the story, but people from the audience are picked for different parts. So usually you just kind of have to hold something up, or it's nothing too difficult or anything. Our kids aren't really that into it because they don't like to be the center of attention like that. But if your kid wouldn't be scared to be one of the actors, they might really enjoy this. And then at the end, everybody that was in the show gets to go meet Belle and get your picture taken. So if you have a big Belle lover, that's my favorite Disney movie, Beauty and the Beast. So when I was little, I would have loved this, but that's one, again, not an e-ticket attraction, but it can be a good filler attraction, or again, if your kid loves Beauty and the Beast. Princess Fairy Tale Hall is another meet and greet. It's close to like Small World, Peter Pan's Flight, that little area. It's right in there. And you can meet different princesses. They kind of rotate, so it changes a lot, but you can meet princesses. There's 2 different ones. You can wait in one line to meet 2 princesses, and then there's like a separate line for 2 different princesses. Another good one for a lightning lane, the line can get kind of long, or like late at night, you can pretty much just walk in and meet them, which we did once. It was super fun. Then there is a Mirabelle meet and greet in Fairy Tale Garden. I believe that is close to the castle. It used to be where Merida would meet, and now it's Mirabelle. We've never met Mirabelle, and I'm really excited to hopefully meet her this summer. I love Encanto. There's a Winnie the Pooh meet and greet outside of the Winnie the Pooh ride as well. If your kid loves Winnie the Pooh, there's also Crystal Palace where you can eat and meet the Winnie the Pooh characters. There might be other characters that pop up here and there too. Peter Pan also sometimes meets near the Neverland map, near the Peter Pan ride. Those are the only ones that were posted on the actual app, everything I've mentioned so far. But sometimes you can meet other characters. They'll just kind of pop up here and there. Depends on your luck sometimes. And then other experiences that are kind of fun. This next one's a little bit silly, but you can go to the Rapunzel Tower and there's restrooms there. I kind of wish there was something cooler than restrooms, but they're very nice restrooms. And if you have a Tangled lover, you can get to see Rapunzel's Tower. There's a really cute picture you can get at night where you're like holding a lantern. There's usually like an hour-long line to wait for it, but if your kid loves Rapunzel, you might want to do that. Also, by the Rapunzel restroom, if you look around, there's a bunch of hidden Pascals in that area. I can't remember exactly how many, but last year we had a lot of fun. We spent probably like a half hour just finding all of the hidden Pascals, so that was a lot of fun. Oh, there's also Gaston's Tavern, and it looks just like in the movie. I love it. As a Beauty and the Beast lover, I love it. They have cinnamon rolls there that are pretty tasty. They're huge. So your children would probably love that, just to see it and also eat the gigantic cinnamon rolls. You can also eat in the Beast's Castle too in Fantasyland. That used to be quick service, and now it's like very expensive sit down dining, table service. I mean, I've heard that it's so expensive it might not even be worth the price. I haven't personally eaten there since it's been table service, so I don't know, but if you really love it's amazing in there though. You can see the ballroom, the West Wing, and if you love Beauty and the Beast, again, another thing to look into. It used to get booked up pretty quick. I don't know if that's still the case, but it's really cool, really immersive. Okay, we have gone through every land except for Tomorrowland now. I feel like this is very in-depth. So hopefully you've gotten a lot of information, but my battery is low, so I'm going to talk quickly. Tomorrowland is another one of our favorites. It has a lot of stuff for kids, I feel like. So the rides, first of all, Astro Orbiter. This is the third Dumbo ride in the park, basically, but it's like elevated Dumbo. So it's up really high, like basically on top of this tower. You have to take an elevator to get there. That's another one that I haven't done since I was 8. So I don't have a lot of recent experience, but I have heard that it is a pain to go up that elevator and get up there. So maybe do it at night. It's probably one that would be great to ride at night because Tomorrowland is really cool at night. So that one's probably a skip it unless your kid's like really into space or something. Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin. This one is a lot of fun. I remember when I was in high school, my choir group went to Disney and we were like blown away by the technology in this ride. Today it seems like a little outdated, especially if you've ridden Toy Story Mania in Hollywood Studios, but I still think it's really fun, especially if you have a Toy Story lover. You basically are in these cars that you can spin them, and you have these shooters that you have to hit different targets, and you're competing to see who can get the highest score. Spoiler alert, I'm horrible at it. I can never figure out if my laser's like actually hitting the target or not. My husband always annihilates me at that game, or that ride, whatever you want to call it. But it's tons of fun. You have to ride it if you have a Star Wars lover. That's one that's really not scary. Anybody's gonna probably like to ride it. The People Mover. This one is a favorite of our whole family. It's basically just, a people mover. You get in this car and it just takes you all around Tomorrowland. You can see inside Space Mountain and a couple other rides, and there's a couple fun little things to look at on the way. You can see views of the castle. We love to ride it during the day, and we love to ride it at night even more. You get really good views of Tron at night too. So that one's not really scary at all. When I was in 3rd grade, my dad did tell me like, oh, we're riding Space Mountain, didn't I tell you? Because it goes inside Space Mountain for a minute, and I cried. So thanks, Dad. He was trying to trick me, and I was terrified of Space Mountain. Anyway, don't do that to your kids. It's mean, Dad. But anyway, I don't even know if he watches these videos. But anyway, People Mover it's a really good one if you want to get off your feet and rest, and it's just like that classic Disney vibes again. Space Mountain, this is another roller coaster. It is a little bit rough. I don't think it's too bad, but it's a little bit rough. It only goes like 27 or 28 miles per hour, so it is not fast, but it's completely in the dark. And so that might be scary for your kids. So just know your kids. There is a height requirement. And that's one that like, I always think, oh, that ride's lame. It only goes like 27 miles per hour. But then every single time I ride it, I get off and I'm like, oh, that's so much more fun than I thought it was gonna be. Like, you forget how fun it is. And I think it's because it's in the dark, but not all kids are gonna love that one. And oh, another thing, the reason my daughter doesn't like it is because it's like, there's only one seat in each row. So there's not like two, you can't sit next to anybody, you're by yourself, and that freaks my daughter out. So that might freak your kids out too, so just know that. In Disneyland, I believe it's like 2 seats, so if we ever go there, maybe she'll ride it. Then we have the Tomorrowland Speedway. These are basically just like miniature cars, and you have to be a certain height to ride and a certain height to drive. I will put that on the screen. It smells like gasoline. It smells pretty bad over there. And it can, oh my gosh, if you ride this in the middle of summer on a hot day, you feel like you're on the surface of the sun while you're sitting there waiting to go. That's the hottest I remember being in Disney World, other than maybe Animal Kingdom. But it's not that exciting. It's exciting for kids because they can ride. It's really bumpy. The only time that I like riding it at night the most, and at Christmas time they have lots of Christmas decorations around that are super fun, and my daughter and I had a lot of fun riding it at Christmas time. But for a lot of people it's going to be a skip unless you have a lot of time, or unless your kid really wants to drive those cars. Scarlett, our oldest, always wants to ride it. But anyway, then the last ride is Tron Light Cycle Run, and I cannot really speak to this very much because last time we were there I was pregnant and I was not able to ride it, so I cannot wait to ride it this summer. But it's probably the most intense ride, so if your kid doesn't like roller coasters, they're not gonna wanna do this one. The seats are a little weird, so you might wanna check those out before you go on it and make sure your kid's gonna be comfortable. There is a height requirement. This is more for those kids that like thrill rides. This is the most thrilling ride at Magic Kingdom. Most of them are pretty tame besides this one. It is a very short ride, so if your kid gets on it and hates it, it's gonna be short, but yeah, definitely more intense than any of the other roller coasters. And hopefully I'll have more to say about that in August when I go. Okay, and then there's a couple of attractions in Tomorrowland too. The first one is Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor. This is a good one to get out of the heat into the air conditioning, to sit down for a while. It's probably like a 15 or 20 minute show, and it's pretty funny. They like have people from the audience interact with the characters on the screen, and we did it for the first time last trip, and it was funnier than I expected it to be. Like, we really enjoyed it. My kids really enjoyed it, so that's going to be a fun one for a lot of kids. And the very last attraction that we are going to talk about today, I had to check my list to make sure, but we've gotten through the entire park, and the last attraction is the Carousel of Progress. It is one of my favorites. I think it is charming. It has the coziest vibes. It's basically just talking about how technology has come along through the years. There's a futuristic scene that cracks me up because it's not futuristic at all. It looks more like it came from the past, but that's part of why I love it. It's very charming. But if you have little kids, you could probably skip this one. My husband even gets bored. He says it's a good nap ride. And I don't even know if you'd consider it a ride. You're sitting in a theater and the seats slowly not rotate, but like spin to get to the next scene. So that's why it's a ride, I guess. It's not very exciting for kids. As much as I hate to say that, you can probably skip it if you have kids, unless they need a break to rest their feet. Although Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor is probably going to be a lot more entertaining for them. So hopefully this video isn't super long, but hopefully I have given you some advice. I hope I've pointed out some things that might be scary, and in case you want to skip some of these rides for your kids, or ones that I think are, more must-do attractions than others, to help you prioritize what rides you want to ride, because you probably won't have time to do them all unless you have 2 or 3 days in the Magic Kingdom. In my first video in this series, I talked a lot more about the park in general and some tips about getting through it in a day. It's very busy and chaotic, but if you do it right, it can be so magical and so great. So if you want to know more general tips about doing Magic Kingdom, go watch my first video in this series. I will link it below, and stay tuned because I'm going to be hitting all of the different parks. We have Animal Kingdom, Hollywood Studios, and Epcot left, and I'm going to be giving tips about doing all of those with kids. And I'm also going to be filming a prep with me 3 months in advance vlog style video pretty soon, where my daughter and I are going to be making some bracelets and planning some of our priorities, 3 months in advance, buying a few things and going through our Disney box. So stay tuned for that, because that will be coming soon as well. I love watching plan and prep and pack with me videos. So if that's interesting for you, or if you want more tips and tricks, I always get tongue-tied when I say that, tips and tricks, then don't forget to subscribe. And thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have the best trip possible.